Hello guys, in today's video I will quickly explain how to get more damage on attribute stacker and how do we scale damage on this build. So as the build is named, we are an attribute stacker and our main source of damage are our attributes, and that's because of our weapon and our gloves. So weapon is Pillar of the Cage God and it gives us 10% increased weapon damage per 5 strength, and our gloves gives us 1 to 10 lightning damage to attacks per 10 intelligence. Actually, I'm not playing with attributes like that, I've got way more dexterity, but for this video I expect to have almost equal of the attributes, and we will need that later to check some rings. But right now with this weapon I've got about 1200 increased weapon damage just from strength. So as you can imagine, over 1000 increased damage is very high amount, and I've got about 60 to 700 lightning damage to attacks with this gloss and this intelligence. Going to the first thing, that how we can scale damage on this build. As you can see, with this amount of increased percentage damage and a little bit lower flat lightning damage, we don't really want to get more increased damage somewhere else than just from the strength. I will show you an example. As you can see, I'm using 2 heralds, so that's 50% increase lightning and cold damage just from heralds, and I've got some lightning and cold damage on my Tempest Flurry. I will show you right now. As you can see, some lightning and cold damage, and just this note, that's 50% increased lightning and cold damage, so that's pretty high amount. 50% is really high just from one node, and it gives us only like, I don't know, 3% increased damage. So that 50% is a really high amount, but for us, when you have this high amount, when you have over 1000 increased damage, this 50% increased damage is not that high for us. So you are way better just by getting some flat damage on your rings, or just pure attributes, because attributes will give you increased weapon damage, the percentage from weapon, and the flat from intelligence. So that's why we want to have as much attributes as you can, just to pop these numbers even higher. But what I wanted to show you by this is that you don't really want to have any increased percentage damage on your rings, because you don't really need that. I've got there 19% increased fire damage, but I don't think I've got any fire damage yet, so it doesn't even give me anything. You are way better off just taking flat damage on your rings. But you want to prioritize attributes, and we'll talk about attributes later, which are the best for just the pure damage. If you've got a good ring with attributes and there is increased damage, of course you can take it, but I mean that just don't look for the rings with increased damage on, because you don't really need that. And as you can see also on 3, I don't think I've got a single node that gives me increased damage, something like that. Everywhere I've got increased critical damage, and we talk about the critical damage later also. Or attack speed, crit. I'm not taking increased damage anywhere. I mean, no, there's crit also and attack speed. So we are not taking any amount of increased damage because we just don't need it. Just because of how much this weapon gives us. Okay, second thing that I want to talk about is the flat damage. So as you can see on the rings, when you press Alt on your keyboard, then on this item you can see there are the suffixes and the prefixes, and attributes, all of the attributes are always suffixes. So as you can see, you can get 3 times attributes, so let's say dexterity, intelligence and strength, and then prefixes are the lightning damage to attacks, fire damage to attacks, cold damage, and etc. The best ring for this build would be ring like that, with prefixes like that, with triple flat damage to attacks, and then at the suffixes triple attributes, and this will be huge damage. And as you can see in POE with this build, when you've got a ring with triple attributes and triple flat damage to attacks, that will be over 25% increased damage to attacks over this ring that I've got here. So yeah, that's huge if you manage to get the rings, but I don't know if there is any on the trade like that. But yeah, the best rings that you want to get is the flat damage to attacks and then attributes as the suffixes. But now I will show you why you want to get attributes first on your rings and then look for the flat damage. So I've bought that ring with pretty good flat damage rolls and almost no attributes, just 6 strength, but that's not too much. And I will equip it over this ring. That ring is way worse than this ring. And look at my damage, how much does it go down? From 1.5 million to 1.2 million. So yeah, that's pretty big change. So that's why you want to prioritize attributes over everything on this build. But when you've got rings with attributes and a lot of divines, you can just look to get a ring with attributes and then flat damage to attacks. There are very often good rings with attributes and some flat damage to attacks for like 2 or 3 divines more than the ring just with attributes. So you want to aim to get a ring with some attributes and maybe pay a little bit more, but get a ring with some flat damage to attacks, because that's always some more damage. And you can always look at this with something like that. Gloves gives us 1 to 12 lightning damage per 10 intelligence. So 1 to 12 lightning damage to attacks is like 10 intelligence more on your ring. So you can look at this like that, but if you don't understand what I'm talking right now, just get ring with attributes and don't bother with that. But if you understand, you can aim to get maybe some less intelligence but better strength and dexterity, and to cover up this intelligence just get some more lightning damage or any other damage to attacks on your ring. And another ring that I wanted to show you, and you can get those rings really cheap, I mean cheap, like 5 to 10 divines, so that will be cheaper than getting good breach rings like this one. But look at my damage. So this ring has some attributes and some damage to attacks. And just look at it, 1.5 and we go 8000 damage more. So yeah, that's some budget option if you just want to get more damage. You can get not a breach ring, just a normal ring with about 30 all attributes, I mean 30 strength, dex and intelligence, and some flat damage to attacks, and that's really good for the damage. If I want to change this ring, my damage is way lower with this ring, and that's because with this ring I've got strength, intelligence and all attributes, not dexterity. And as you can see, dexterity only gives us attack speed, and we are stacking dexterity from the weapon. We got 2% per 5 dexterity. From the gloves we got 3% per 25 dexterity, and from the tree we got 1% per 15 dexterity. So we are stacking attack speed from 3 sources and as the increased weapon damage and the flat damage, we are stacking it only from 1 source. If you just want to prioritize to get as much damage as you can, you want to get more intelligence and strength than dexterity. But keep in mind that you still want to get some dexterity, so don't go like 600 strength and intelligence and like 200 dexterity. No, you want to have almost every attribute pretty similar. Okay, and now I will show you how each attribute works for us. So I've got rings with almost nothing, just the one single attribute that I want to showcase you. So we'll go first with the strength, and as you can see I've got 400,000 DPS, and with the ring that has only strength and nothing else for the damage, we go up to 540,000. Then we'll go with the intelligence. We are going to 530,000. The strength and intelligence are almost the same for us. And then with the dexterity, and we didn't even hit the 500k DPS. So as you can see, if you want to have more damage, you want to go with more strength and intelligence and then grab dexterity, because dexterity doesn't give us as much damage as the strength and intelligence. So once more, strength over 500, same as intelligence, and with the dex we don't hit the 500. So remember that. For damage, go with strength, intelligence and then dexterity. Okay, and last thing that I want to talk about, how we can scale damage, is the critical hit chance and critical hit damage. And as you can see, and I don't got too much, that's only 43% and over 500 crit multi, but I'm also using the Eye of Winter, so I've got additional 10% base, and it's scaled then by critical hit chance, so I've got pretty high amount of the critical hit chance. And then the critical hit damage, so I will show you on this weapon, and look at this number. So yeah, there I've got runes for attack speed and I've got 1.6 million, but if I was to change this weapon for the crit damage bonus instead of the attack speed runes, look, I go over 100k damage more, and as you can see, there is stated that it's 24% to critical bonus damage, and that's not just the 24%, but I think that's the multiplicative, and it gives us 662%, so that's over 100% critical bonus damage. We will lose some attack speed, of course we lose about 1.5 attack speed, but if you want to have more damage and you are maybe playing Ice Strike, or you just don't care about the very fast movement with Tempest Fury, you can just get a weapon with critical damage runes. You will have way better damage.